After the breakup, I took a pregnancy test and saw 2 lines. My family arranged a blind date with a wealthy family, so I had to go and meet this sucker, hoping to ask him to be the unwitting father. As I walked in, I froze. My ex-boyfriend was sitting there, fuming. He looked shocked to see me. My mom enthusiastically introduced him. "Lily, this is the heir to the Sterling Corporation. Wasn't he supposed to be working construction?" He stood up, a smirk playing on his lips. "Aren't you waitressing today?" I met Ethan Sterling when I was running away from home. My dad had cut off my credit cards, taken my car and apartment. Determined to starve before accepting help, I got a job as a waitress. On my first day, I kissed him. It wasn't entirely my fault. Blame the slippery floor and the cleaning lady. 5-star hotels, always so diligently mopped. Ethan, my accidental victim, was blushing. He had the most gorgeous features, and his skin looked so soft. I meant to say, "Oh my God, are you okay?" But it came out as, "I'm so sorry. I'll take responsibility for this." He paused, then a slow smile spread across his face. "Okay." My heart skipped a beat. Not only was he handsome, but his voice was smooth as velvet. Fate must have pitied my poverty and sent me this beautiful man. He didn't look rich, though. He was dressed in clothes that screamed bargain bin, but that didn't diminish his attractiveness. Ethan waited for me to finish my shift. As we walked, he was too shy to even hold my hand. "Where do you live? I'll walk you home." He said it wasn't safe for a girl to walk alone at night. Such a thoughtful guy. I shyly confessed, "My family's not well off. I rent a tiny place, and I'm just a waitress." Ethan grabbed my hand, his expression earnest. "Being broke doesn't matter. We're young, we have our hands and feet, we can work hard. And there's no shame in any honest job." He had such a good heart. "What do you do?" I asked. A flicker of something, panic, crossed his face. He pointed to a half-finished skyscraper in the distance. "I work over there." Oh, construction, I realized. No wonder he understood the working-class struggle. I clapped him on the shoulder. "Boyfriend, you've got a bright future." He seemed startled, then laughed. "You too." From then on, every day on my way to work, I'd pass the construction site. He'd be there in his work clothes, waving. His pockets were like a magic bag, producing bagels and coffee one day, breakfast burritos and juice the next. He even brought me a strawberry cheesecake once. I recognized the fancy packaging from my favorite bakery. I used to devour them by the dozen, but on my $600 a month salary, even one was a luxury. I carefully scooped a bite and offered it to him. "This must have been expensive. You only make $1,200 a month. What a waste to spend it on this." Ethan pushed the spoon back into my mouth, frowning. "Nothing I buy for you is a waste. Don't you like it?" Like it? I hadn't had anything this decadent since I left home. I'd just been staring longingly at the bakery window the night before, and he'd remembered. I hugged him, kissing his cheek. "Thank you. You're too good to me." He smiled. "As long as you like it. Maybe someday I'll make enough money to buy you the whole bakery." That was a sweet sentiment, but unrealistic. That bakery was legendary for refusing to sell, no matter the offer. The next day, I woke up to news that Sweet Surrender, the bakery, had been bought by a mystery buyer. Who had that kind of pull? Sitting on a park bench, eating the breakfast sandwich Ethan had brought, I said, "I heard Sweet Surrender got bought out. Wonder who has that kind of money." Ethan stiffened beside me. "You heard about that?" Remembering his promise to buy me the bakery, my heart melted. "Don't worry about it. Rich people and their crazy spending sprees." He winced, looking even more uncomfortable. Men and their pride, I thought. "Honey, I'm happy just eating the treats you buy me. Forget the whole bakery thing." My phone buzzed. It was my dad. Feeling guilty, I shoved the rest of the sandwich into Ethan's hand and walked away to answer. Lily, my dad's voice was smooth. I've been thinking. If you're homesick, you can always come back. We've spoiled you for 20-some years. How can you stand living like this? Was it hard? I glanced back at Ethan, my heart full. My dad was trying the guilt trip now that the tough love approach had failed. He was so transparent. My mom had recently become obsessed with travel, specifically round-the-world cruises. In 2 years, she'd taken 4 impromptu trips abroad, leaving my lovesick dad at home, fretting. He'd call her 20 times a day, claiming he was worried his innocent wife would get scammed. I'd built up an immunity to their lovey-dovey act over the years. So, my dad resorted to emotionally manipulating me, trying to force the family business into my hands. He claimed he was too old and tired. I knew he just wanted to travel the world with my mom. If I showed any weakness, I'd be trapped. Dad, I told you, I want to build my own life. Now, Lily, are you still mad? I didn't mean what I said. Anyway, do you know who bought Sweet Surrender? Now that I was interested in. I'd begged my dad to buy it for me before, offering $5 million. The owner wouldn't budge, saying it wasn't about the money, but the legacy. So, who bought it? He dragged it out. Take a guess. Dad, come on. If you don't want to tell me, I'll hang up. Okay. Remember that Sterling boy I wanted you to meet on that blind date? Vaguely. Ethan, something? Lily, just imagine, your favorite bakery, owned by him. If you two got married, you could have all the cheesecake you want. It was tempting, but marrying into the Sterling family just for cake? That was pathetic. Dad, you underestimate me. Despite the temptation, I hung up, feeling smug. Ethan saw my sour mood. What's wrong? Nothing, just my dad being annoying. I looped my arm through his. Ethan, we're going to work hard and make even better cheesecake than Sweet Surrender. Huh? He looked confused. You didn't hear? The guy who bought it is a Sterling too. But he's not like you. You're handsome and hard-working. That other Sterling is just a spoiled brat. Ethan's expression was hard to read. He asked carefully, why do you dislike rich kids so much? Hadn't he heard the saying, better to cry in a BMW than smile on a bicycle? He was probably worried I'd look down on him. I hate those trust fund babies. You wouldn't believe the entitled jerks I see at the hotel. They're rude and arrogant, not like us, hard-working folks, right? I was definitely not one of the hard-working folks. He nodded slowly, looking preoccupied. He handed me the still warm breakfast sandwich he'd been holding. Smells delicious. It was a big, fluffy sandwich packed with shrimp, beef, mushrooms, something different every time. Where do you get these? They're not like the ones from the deli. He hesitated. My family makes them. Wow, your mom or grandma? They're amazing. He just smiled, saying nothing. After breakfast, we went our separate ways to work. During my lunch break, my mom called. Honey, come home. Renting is no fun. I've told your father off. He shouldn't have said those things to you. She still thought I was sulking about our argument. It wasn't entirely that. I knew my limitations. I could manage myself, but managing a company? No, thanks. Mostly, after being pampered for 20 years, I wanted to see if I could stand on my own 2 feet. I was working on my master's thesis. I didn't plan to be a waitress forever. But Ethan had thrown a wrench in my plans. For now, I had to keep dating, keep waitressing, and stay away from home. I was falling for him. Mom, don't bother. You should be persuading Dad, not me. And by the way, I have a boyfriend now. Really? What does he look like? How old is he? Where does he live? What do his parents do? Oh, great. Why did I say that? Mom, I have to go back to work. Bye. Lily, when did you meet him? Tell me everything. I hung up, wanting to kick myself. Predictably, my mom started dropping hints, which I pretended not to notice. After work, Ethan walked me home. We strolled hand in hand. When I got tired, he carried me on his back, buying me hot roasted sweet potatoes and candied chestnuts. He cupped my face in his hands, gazing at me. "Lily, I'll buy a car next month. Then you won't have to walk in the cold anymore." I shook my head. "No way. How can you warm my hands if you're in a heated car? I like walking. It's good exercise." He smiled indulgently. "Okay." As we neared my apartment, I spotted a familiar Mercedes parked down the street. The license plate 888 stood out among the regular cars. My mom! I frantically checked my phone. Sure enough, there was a text, "Honey, I'm coming to see you." This was all my fault for mentioning a boyfriend. "Mom, no. I'm working late. I won't be home." "Don't lie. I see you at the end of the alley." Followed by a winky face emoji. "Is that your boyfriend with you? Come closer, I can't see his face." "Thanks, Mom." "Mom, please don't. He doesn't know who I really am. He thinks I'm just a regular waitress." My mom paused. "Oh, well, that's fine. I can play along." I groaned internally. "No, your acting is terrible." "I'll just be quiet then. I brought you some food. You're going to send your mother away hungry?" I looked around desperately. "Mom, this is a low-income neighborhood. You'll look like you're showing off with your fancy car. And if people find out you're my mom, I might get robbed." That gave her pause. "All right, honey? Stay safe. Is your boyfriend spending the night?" "Seriously?" "Mom, we're just dating. It's innocent." I saw Ethan returning with 2 cups of hot chocolate and quickly ended the call. We stood awkwardly at the corner for 15 minutes until my mom finally drove away. Ethan's nose and ears were red from the cold. "Want to come up for some hot tea?" I blurted out. It was the first time I'd invited him to my apartment after a month of dating. "Sure," he said with a grin. "Maybe I can fix that flickering light bulb for you, too, or unclog your sink." "Shut up." Back in my apartment, I poured him some tea. Just then, there was a knock at the door. "Probably just a delivery," I said, avoiding his eyes. I opened the door and froze. It was my mom, dressed in a food delivery uniform. She actually looked the part. She gave me a big, fake smile, handed me a bag of takeout, then pushed me aside to peer inside. In a loud voice, she announced, "2 people eating tonight? I brought extra cutlery." I wanted to die. I glanced back to make sure Ethan wasn't coming. Lowering my voice, I hissed, "Mom, what are you doing?" She looked innocent. "Delivering food?" Then, with a touch of pride, she added, "Lily, thanks for reminding me to be low-key. I've started wearing this when I collect rent. It feels so relatable." Relatable? Was this how she collected rent now? I should have known my mom's curiosity wouldn't be satisfied with just driving by. "Mom, you're blowing my cover. You delivered the food, now go." She looked at me, aghast. "Honey, I went through all this trouble. Can't you even offer me a cup of tea?" She was doing this on purpose. "Mom, have you ever heard of someone inviting the delivery person in for tea?" She actually thought about it. Well, there was that news story. "Mom, seriously, not today." Fine, I guess I have to reveal my true identity. Was she about to transform into a superhero or something? Before she could do anything drastic, I clamped my hand over her mouth. Ethan appeared at the door, looking concerned. He saw me holding my mom hostage. Her eyes were wide, muffled protests coming from behind my hand. "Just a minute," I told Ethan. "I need to talk to this lady. Go back inside. Sit down." He hesitated, then returned to the living room. I dragged my mom outside, slamming the door shut. One look, just one look, and I almost saw his face. My mom patted my back. "Honey, even if he's a poor boy, I wouldn't judge him. As long as you're happy, that's all that matters." As sweet as that was, I still hadn't told Ethan the truth about myself. Mom, you have to understand. If you go in there and I'm exposed, what if he gets mad? My mom stared at me. You're just as love-struck as your father. Then she grinned slyly. You didn't really think I was going to announce I'm your mother, did you? What else would you do? She pulled out a large ring of keys, dangling them triumphantly. I'm here to collect the rent. I forgot to tell you, you're renting our property. Seriously? I'd been scrimping and saving, paying 3 months' rent up front, and she was telling me this now? Mom, are you kidding me? I understood now why my dad had said, with a knowing look, Lily, you're too young to understand why the Monkey King couldn't escape Buddha's palm. I wasn't escaping anything. I was being played. I took her hand, pleading. Mom, so can I? No. I didn't even finish. I know what you're going to ask. Free rent? No way. This was my mother, all right. Worried Ethan would get suspicious, I hurried back inside after shooing my mom away. What was that about? Ethan asked, rushing to the door. Did you two have a fight? I forced a smile. No, we're good. He looked skeptical. Who was she? I racked my brain. She was asking for a good review. I was starving, so I dove into the leftovers I'd brought home, barely hearing what he said. Ethan was so good to me, I wanted to do something nice for him. I spent the weekend trying to recreate my housekeeper's sushi recipe. After countless failures, I finally succeeded. On Monday, I drove to his construction site to surprise him for lunch. Honey, guess where I am? The construction site was noisy with machinery, but Ethan's background was strangely quiet. I looked up at the 26th floor, where tiny figures were moving around. Construction work must be so tough. Lily? Where are you? His voice, as always, sent shivers down my spine. I brought you lunch. I know you're working up high, so no need to come down. I can wait. Okay, I'll be right there. Don't come inside, it's dirty and dangerous. He sounded almost breathless. 15 minutes later, Ethan appeared, slightly out of breath. He wore a yellow hard hat and an ill-fitting, dusty uniform. His wrists stuck out from the 2 short sleeves. Your boss is so cheap. Skimping on uniforms? He flushed, stammering. The foreman is busy, probably didn't notice. He was obviously embarrassed to ask for a new uniform. I put my hands on my hips. Details matter. It's freezing, and you're working on the top floor. Your wrists and ankles are exposed. You'll get arthritis when you're older. I'm talking to your boss. No one messed with my man. I grabbed his hand and marched toward the site entrance. Ethan quickly borrowed a hard hat for me from a passing worker. It was red. Ethan, over here. A worker in a white hard hat waved him over. Ethan led me to a small, heated metal shed. It was surprisingly clean inside. Why isn't your friend joining us for lunch? I asked. He glanced outside. They already ate. Wow, your boss is actually pretty nice, providing a heated lunchroom. Ethan fidgeted, eyeing my lunchbox. He must have been starving after a morning of hard work. My heart ached for him. I made you sushi. Try some? He took a bite and his eyes lit up. Delicious. Better than that authentic Japanese place I went to. You've been to Japan? He backtracked quickly. No, I mean that place called Tokyo Sushi. I patted his head. I'll take you to Japan someday for real sushi. He blinked. Huh? I mean, when we have enough money, we'll travel the world together. He nodded, relieved. I mentally kicked myself. That was close. I watched a group of workers in different colored hard hats gathered in an open area. What are they doing? Meeting, he said, without looking up. Why aren't you there? He hesitated. My rank isn't high enough. I understood. Ethan had a trade school diploma and came from a humble background. A job in the city, paying $1,200 a month, was probably a big deal for him. Do the different colored hats mean different ranks? Yeah. He finished the sushi and joined me at the window, explaining red is the highest, for management. White is for regular workers. His profile was striking, strong jawline, high cheekbones, dark, intense eyes. His voice was deep and resonant, his Adam's apple bobbing as he spoke. He was utterly captivating. I stared at him, mesmerized. He turned, catching my gaze. A slow smile spread across his face, and his eyes seemed to sparkle. On impulse, I leaned in and kissed him. As he responded, I suddenly pulled back. Do any of your coworkers wear red hats? He looked flustered. Yeah, my uncle. Something felt off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I was about to ask more when he said, "You have to get back to work. I'll walk you out." As we left, the group of workers stared at us. I felt self-conscious. Your friends are so nice, escorting us out like I'm some VIP. He shielded me from their gazes. Yeah, they look out for me. How sweet. Months passed, and our relationship deepened. I graduated with my master's degree. Lately, Ethan had been acting strange, secretive. What's up? Are you hiding something? He finally cracked. I saw your ID. I know your birthday is coming up. I'm planning a surprise. My heart soared. Finally, my birthday arrived. Ethan was waiting at my apartment door with a bouquet of flowers. Lily, happy birthday. It was cliched, but the gesture touched me deeply. Inside, he'd set up a candlelit dinner, just like in the movies. I hugged him, kissing his cheek. Thank you, Ethan. He smiled. Don't mention it. And I have a present for you. Open it. My heart pounded as I held the beautifully wrapped box. I'd received countless gifts in my life, but this was my first from a boyfriend. I opened the box and froze. Ethan looked at me expectantly. What's wrong? Don't you like it? Honestly, it was beautiful. But it was far too extravagant for him to afford. It was a set of emerald jewelry worth over $100,000. My smile faltered. I closed the box, looking into his dark eyes. Ethan, why would you get me this? He glanced away. I didn't know what to get you. I just thought, your neck looked kind of bare. I saw a necklace being sold online, so I picked this out. Online? What influencer sold $100,000 jewelry online? Did he think I was 3 years old? But his expression was so sincere. These emeralds. He met my gaze. They're obviously fake. But the silver chain is real. My degree was in jewelry design. I'd seen my share of sparkly rocks. I could spot a real emerald a mile away. After my birthday dinner, Ethan said he had to go home to deal with a family matter. Do you want me to come with you? I asked casually. We'd been dating for a while. My parents knew about him. It was time to meet his family. He looked panicked and quickly made up an excuse. I wouldn't have cared before, but after the extravagant jewelry, I couldn't shake a feeling of unease. I watched him get into a cab, then immediately hailed another one, following him. His cab stopped a few blocks later. I watched as he got into a chauffeured Lincoln. A driver even opened the door for him. My heart sank. The car pulled up to a private club. I recognized the name. It was members only, requiring an invitation from an existing member. Before I could process this, a stunning woman in designer clothes appeared at the entrance. She rushed to Ethan, embracing him. He patted her back. Even from the car, I could see the tender smile on his face. She took his arm and they walked inside. I stared at the closed doors, feeling like I'd been stabbed. Ethan was being kept by a rich woman. What did that make me? The kept man's kept woman? My first relationship, and I'd fallen for this. How pathetic. Back at my apartment, I drank a few glasses of wine and called Ethan to break up with him. He rushed over, made me sober up tea, and tried to massage my temples. I pushed him away. "Ethan, have you been lying to me?" He looked at me, then shook his head. "No." "Right." I laughed humorlessly. "I just realized I don't love you anymore." "That's a lie." He suddenly grabbed me, kissing me fiercely. He was usually gentle, but now he was like a wild animal. I couldn't break free, so I bit him hard. He let go with a gasp, his eyes dark. "Lily, I'm not letting you go." He leaned in again. I must have been crazy to kiss him back. When I finally came to my senses, it was the middle of the night. Ethan was asleep beside me. I slipped out of bed, got dressed, and looked at his sleeping form. I grabbed $100 from my purse and left a note. "I'm done playing. This is for your services. Goodbye and good riddance." I went home, defeated. My parents immediately guessed I'd been dumped. They tactfully avoided mentioning the family business. The breakup hit me harder than I expected. I lost my appetite, feeling nauseated at the sight of greasy food. I was losing weight rapidly, and my mom was worried sick. She brought me a cake from Cherished Delights, the new, ridiculously named Sweet Surrender. At least I could still stomach cake. My mom stroked my hair. "There are plenty of fish in the sea. He didn't deserve you." Tears welled up, but I blinked them back. "Mom, I'm fine. It's just a guy. There are tons of them. I'll find someone who appreciates me." She nodded eagerly. "Speaking of which, remember that Sterling boy? The one who bought the bakery? I heard he's single. Maybe you two could." She was at it again. "Just humor us?" she pleaded. I sighed. "Fine, set it up." Her face lit up. "Okay. I'm so glad you're feeling better." Maybe it was all the cake, but my stomach started cramping that night. I rubbed my belly, then realized with a jolt, I hadn't had my period in 2 months. A wave of dread washed over me. 30 minutes later, I stared at the 2 lines on the pregnancy test. I was numb. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I wanted to find Ethan, bite him, and kick him repeatedly. The next morning, my mom barged in, pulling out dresses and makeup. I vaguely remembered her mentioning a blind date last night. A blind date? I was pregnant. But seeing the genuine happiness on her face, I couldn't bring myself to ruin it. I'd been miserable since the breakup, and she'd been miserable with me. It was just a date. I could sabotage it easily. I touched my still flat stomach. "Don't fail me now, kid." We arrived at an upscale restaurant. I trailed behind my mom, head down, determined to make a terrible first impression on this Sterling guy. He shared a last name with Ethan. That was enough. All Sterlings were jerks. "Lily, come here. This is Ethan." "Ethan?" I looked up. It was Ethan. My mind went blank. He was Ethan Sterling? The one who bought the bakery? He looked just as shocked as I was, but he recovered faster. Men. Heartless creatures. Well, shouldn't you be laying bricks?" I sneered. He calmly replied, "Shouldn't you be waiting tables?" Our mothers stared at us, dumbfounded. Ethan smoothly addressed them. "Just kidding." My mom recovered first. "You two already know each other." I didn't know what to say. I felt like I'd swallowed a bug. Ethan's mom and mine made an excuse to go shopping, leaving us alone. Silence descended. We avoided eye contact. "What are you doing here?" he asked. Seriously? Had he lost the ability to speak properly? "Shouldn't I be asking you that question?" He shifted uncomfortably. I didn't know it was a blind date. "Right. Try that on a teenager." I was about to launch into a sarcastic tirade when a wave of nausea hit me. I ran to a corner trash can and threw up. Ethan rushed to my side, rubbing my back. "Are you okay? Didn't you eat anything? I told you to stop drinking iced drinks. Is your stomach upset?" "It was morning sickness. Your baby was the culprit." I pushed him away. "Save your fake concern, Ethan. Don't think we can just pretend nothing happened. You lied to me. I'm not getting back together with you, and I'm certainly not marrying you. He touched his nose. I haven't even said anything yet. Lily, even a death sentence requires a reason. I thought for a second. The reason is, you're inadequate. I blurted out, then fled. Outside, my face burned. I shook my head, trying to erase him from my mind. I wandered around all day, returning home late, assuming my parents would be asleep. They were waiting for me in the living room. My mom cut me off, giving me a knowing look. See? I told you you'd like him. I'm so happy you two hit it off. Hit it off? Did they think I'd spent the evening with Ethan? What did he say? I asked cautiously. My mom beamed. He said you two are in love and practically engaged. He was lying. In love? Mom, I'm not marrying him. She frowned. Are you still hung up on that other boyfriend? He was broke and had no ambition. How could he ever give you a good life? If only she knew. Mom, please don't mention him. We're over. Oh, I know, you're just embarrassed, right? It's okay, we're not judging. There was no point arguing. I was exhausted. I waved my hand and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to commotion downstairs. Was my mom throwing a party? I looked down and gasped. Ethan and his parents were sitting on our sofa, chatting with my parents. This guy was relentless. Ethan, get up here, I yelled. I instantly regretted it. Everyone looked startled. I wanted to disappear. Ethan, however, remained calm. Lily's calling me, he explained to our parents. My parents practically shoved him upstairs. Go, go! Lily's room is the first door on the left. Ethan's parents were beaming. It was clear they thought the wedding was a done deal. I dragged Ethan into my room. What is the meaning of this? He ignored me, looking around my room. So this is what you like. He rubbed the back of his neck. I wish I hadn't given you that heirloom jewelry then. Heirloom? Your sister? I asked tentatively. He showed me a picture on his phone. It was the woman from the club. Your sister? He raised an eyebrow. Same mother, same father. Yes, my sister. Oh. I wanted the earth to swallow me whole. He'd think it was hilarious that I'd broken up with him over a misunderstanding involving his sister. Okay, I could forgive the jewelry. But him hiding his identity? I didn't have much ground to stand on, considering my own deception. He saw my silence and pinched my cheek. You're the most beautiful girl I know, you know that? Wait. My face turned crimson. What are you talking about? Ethan, stop it. Get away from me. There was a knock at the door. My mom. Lily, Ethan, time to go. He grabbed my hand as we left the room, and I couldn't shake him off. My parents exchanged knowing smiles. Ethan's parents had booked a restaurant for a formal family dinner. I was puzzled until we arrived. It was the restaurant where I used to work. I didn't want to get out of the car. We snuck into a private room. I prayed none of my former coworkers would recognize me. As everyone settled in, another wave of nausea hit me. Excuse me, I mumbled, rushing to the restroom. I vaguely heard my mom say, she's been sick for days. She's usually so healthy. When I returned, the atmosphere was tense. Ethan was staring at me intently. What's going on? I asked. Then I saw her. Linda, my old coworker, was assigned to our room. She grinned at me. Lily, what are you doing here? You're pregnant, you should be resting. Oops. In my morning sickness fog, I'd confided in her yesterday. She pointed at Ethan, her eyes widening in understanding. Oh, I get it. You're here because of him. That jerk. Leading you on, then leaving you to be a single mom. Our parents stared at each other, trying to piece together this dramatic narrative. I clamped my hand over Linda's mouth and dragged her out. Linda, I can handle this. Thank you. She looked at me sympathetically. Don't be afraid, Lily. Make that deadbeat take responsibility. Hey, what are you doing? I have to serve them. No, you don't. Seriously, you don't. Back in the room, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Ethan's parents glared at him. My own parents looked equally stern. Under their combined parental scrutiny, we stumbled through a sanitized version of our story. And the baby? 5 pairs of eyes fixated on my stomach. I shivered. Ethan took my hand and knelt. Lily, I'm sorry I kept my identity from you. I'll marry you. I'll take care of you and the baby, always. Before I could respond, the door burst open. Mom! Dad! What is this, arranged marriage? Didn't you know Ethan already has a girlfriend? He slaved away on our construction site for 6 months for this girl. He even gave her Grandma Sterling's emeralds and bought that rundown bakery, renaming it Cherished Delights. Cheesy, I know, but her name is Lily. If that's not true love, I don't know what is. I, for one, do not approve of this marriage. Ethan's sister's dramatic entrance stunned everyone into silence. Olivia, Ethan said, the girl I love is Lily. Lily Evans. Olivia blinked. You little, I heard her mutter under her breath. Ethan just grinned. Years later, when our son was 7, he developed a crush on a girl in his class and asked me excitedly, Mommy, I want to bake Sarah a cake, just like Daddy baked for you. Of course, sweetie. Let's go ask Daddy to teach you. Ethan was in the garden, pushing our daughter on the swing. Our son ran to me. Mommy, I want cookies. I pretended to be distressed. Oh no, Mommy doesn't know how to bake cookies. What will we do? He pointed at Ethan. Daddy does. Ethan and I exchanged a smile, our hands finding each other's.